My name is Serge, though on the street, names lose their weight fast. Out here, people talk to you more with gestures. Someone nods. Someone looks away. Someone sets a cup of tea on the ventilation grate and walks on in silence. But if I close my eyes and summon the voice that used to call me, it's still there, even, calm, with the cadence of a morning dispatcher. Driver of Route 41, roll out. I used to drive a bus. I love the early shifts. The city's still cool, a pink seam on the horizon. The depot doors smelling of diesel and iron. In the mornings, the cabin was quiet. Only the heater huffed, and the windows slowly thawed in circles where the rag had rubbed them clear. I knew every light on my route, where to be careful at the tricky tram junction, where an old woman with a cart would be late for the first shuttle by the corner store. At the end of the line, we drank tea by the inspector's booth and argued about soccer. Sometimes I brought pancakes Tanya fried on Sundays. At home, there were Tanya and Alina, 5 years old. On the fridge, a bus-shaped magnet with a child's handwriting, "Dad, don't honk too loud, I'm sleeping." Then, things started to break, not loudly at first, as if someone gently backed out a couple of bolts. Shifts got longer, the schedule tighter. One day on a wet road, a dog darted out. I jerked the wheel and threaded between parked cars. No one was hurt. Half a bumper gone, a couple of claim forms at the insurers, but management needed someone to blame. Reviews, formalities, the endless "sign here," and hints the matter could go faster if I didn't dig in. I'm stubborn. They suspended my commercial license, pending investigation. "You'll do maintenance for now," they said. Almost at the same time, my mom had a stroke. I thought it would be temporary, that I'd manage. Odd jobs, a home nurse by the hour. But a home isn't a depot, and a stroke isn't a wet road. I sold the car to pay for rehab. Tanya was patient at first, then she was tired. Money ran out, patience ran out, and our conversations ran out. We tried not to fight in front of Alina, but children hear silence louder than shouting. One day, coming back from Mom's after a night shift loading boxes, they were gone. "We're at my sister's. We need to think," a text said. Then court, thin paper, a seal, and the word divorce. I didn't argue. I'd forgotten how to argue. Just did what had to be done. The last money went to medicine, funeral services, and more "sign here." Mom died quietly, the way she did everything. On the day of the funeral, I realized the keys I had didn't open anything anymore. The flat we lived in was hers. The inheritance meant more papers and fees I couldn't pay. I rented a room and took odd shifts at the markets. I kept my documents, passport, driver's license, in an old leather pouch like a talisman. Once I fell asleep in a dorm. In the morning, the pouch was gone. I've never regretted anything as much as that lost card with my photo behind the driver's glass. At the station, they told me it was all recoverable. I needed an address registration, an application, a fee. "Registered where?" the woman at the window asked. I shrugged. The line was thick, like cafeteria soup. "Next," she said, and I walked out. I spent my first night outside by a heat main, where warm air pushed up through a grate. I kept feeling like someone was stepping on my shadow. Sleep tore into rags, with a clink of bottles and the rustle of bags. In the morning, I was ashamed to meet anyone's eyes. A guy who was clearly late set a cup of coffee on the edge of the grate and vanished. I'd freeze any day for a gesture like that. The wind from under the bridge carried the smell of wet iron and a sweet kind of burn, someone warming by a barrel down the span. Life on the street isn't like in the movies or the scary stories. It's smaller and quieter. Every day you have to find simple things: where to wash your hands, where to warm up briefly without drawing attention and without losing the little you have. I had 2 bags. In one, an old sweater and cleaner trousers, in case I could get into a center that helps with papers. In the other, the small things that, strangely, make you a person again. A toothbrush, a disposable razor, a squared notebook, and a pen. In the notebook I wrote routes, not bus routes, mine. Where they serve soup at noon, where the shower opens for 3 minutes, where the guard won't chase you if you're not falling over. Problems grow from trifles. In the rain, there's nowhere to dry socks. In frost, there's nowhere to hide your fingers before they stop being yours. The police might ask you to come along, and by the time you're done, your bags feel lighter. At night, it's scary to sleep. You wake at your own name as if someone called you. By day, you try not to smell, because smell is a fence with too many words painted on it. No one has to take it down, but sometimes someone passes by without reading, and that makes it easier. The documents turned out just as they said, everything possible. But the circles are like water you've disturbed and can't smooth back. For a passport, you need a certificate. For the certificate, you need a passport. For a shelter bed, you need a document. To get the document, you need an address. I walked between windows like between track sections with no switches. In the end, I met Lena, a volunteer at the city center. Short, freckled, a voice without commands. She said, "No registration? Okay, we'll try a temporary one." She took me to a social lawyer who explained a path through a lost property statement and a place of stay certificate. For the fee, Lena quietly set a receipt on the desk and said, "Pay it back someday if you want. Or help someone else." I nodded. Words were scarce. While the papers moved, I learned to live in the off-season, between people. Every bridge has its own rules. Under our 3rd span slept those who kept it quiet. Sasha the accordion, who used to play in the subway, now warmed his fingers over a barrel and laughed without sound. He'd lost 2 fingers to frost last winter, and he showed the stump like a joke he had to tell. Sometimes we went together to the place that handed out shoes. On the wall hung a mirror, and in it a face I'd let into a bus cabin but wouldn't seat behind a wheel. Stubble, cracked lips, a gaze always looking for an anchor in the corner. The hardest thing is being a stranger in your own city. The stop where you once stood by the driver's door is now a place where you try to stand off to the side so you don't get in the way. Once Route 41 went by. I recognized the brakes by a sound I used to pick out at night, and for a second it felt like it slowed for me. In the windows, other people's lives, lively as kids in a snowball fight. A warm cabin, a hand reaching for the button that isn't mine. Sometimes I picked up unloading shifts at little shops, box, another box, 90 minutes without talk. A couple of times I earned enough for a hostel bed. It's warm there, but your bed is like a ticket that can expire at any moment, and in the morning you're outside again. I learned to be glad for small things, hot water from a cooler, the warm gust at the subway when the doors open, and a clerk's smile when she once said, "Here, take the bread. It's going to be written off anyway." On those days, the world gave me a place for a second. I spoke to my daughter by phone twice in a year. The first time I dialed her number at night from someone else's phone. We were silent so long I think we both heard the grass grow. She said, "Dad?" And I hung up, afraid of being not the man she remembers. The second time we spoke briefly and carefully, like on thin ice. I said I was working on the documents, that I'd get hired at least as a janitor. She said, "Okay." And in that "okay," I heard a version of myself that didn't have to be thrown away yet. When the temporary paper came through, Lena took me to a day center. You could shower there, even shave. In the mirror, I saw a neck I'd forgotten, and eyes where a gap between the wrinkles opened up again, a space for something other than cold. We talked with a foreman at the bus yard. They won't take me as a driver yet, need a commission, lots of paperwork. But he said, "Apply to the wash or the night bay. Run the buses through after their routes. Bring the papers. We'll help file them." I walked out and for the first time in months felt I had a route again, even if short, like the hop to the terminus. Now I'm sitting under the bridge, but my back isn't so tight. On my knees is that same squared notebook. I've written a date, a time, and address. Beside the barrel, steam rises in a straight column. Sasha the accordion quietly scrapes at the neck of an invisible instrument. Lena texted, "Don't be late tomorrow." I won't be. Not because I believe everything will be like before. It won't, and maybe it shouldn't. But I have a name again I can say at a window, hands I can lower into warm water without fearing someone will push them away. There's a city that if you really try, you can hear not as a roar above, but as the whisper of a route where the terminus is just another beginning. And I have a key. It doesn't fit any door in this city. I carry it anyway, because it reminds me doors exist, and someday one will click again on the side where I'll be standing, unashamed of my breath in the cold air. Maybe it'll be a door in a dorm by the bus yard, or a room in a shared flat. Maybe it will be a bus door I'll open at a stop and say to my passengers, as I once did in an ordinary voice, "Good morning." Only this time I'll say it to myself,